Okay guys, so welcome back to the channel. This is an absolute banger and I'm so excited to talk about this one. I am the world's worst for sticking to a plan, but I think that gives me a really good experience and knowledge to help share some of the things that I do that makes a right mess of my plans to help you perhaps stick to your plans that little bit better. What is it with things like FOMO, fear of missing out? Suddenly you're sticking to your training, you see what somebody else does, or you hear that other people are doing a session, you jump in, and then when you look at the last 2 weeks, you've changed everything. What's the problem with that? Let's address it today. How do you set a plan up? How do you then make sure that you stick to that plan? And how do you hold yourself accountable to not get, off course or veer towards somebody else's plan that was never set up for you? If you want to achieve that big goal, you want to get that big race result, you've got to start nailing down a really good plan that gives you the best chance of achieving that goal. But then you've also got to make sure that as things start to progress, you don't get excited, you don't get these little ideas of, oh, I could do this now, I could change this. You stick to that bulletproof plan that you put in place at the very beginning. You trust it and you see it through. So let's talk about some things that you can do to improve your planning, but also help you stick to plans and not veer off too much. And then what you can also do is watch me bringing things back to basics. I needed to get back to my plan. My plan was working, the training was working, it was ticking the boxes, I was keeping it simple. It might have been getting a little bit boring, and that's often why we start to change things, but boring is brilliant. Simple is best. Stick to the basics, do them really well. Today I did 4 times 3K threshold, keeping that lactate under 2, and the only goal was to get back to basics, back to the original plan that was working. Let's get stuck into this video. Let's help you with your planning, and you can keep an eye on how that session went for me today. Okay guys, so let me give you some context. Why are we talking about planning today? What's so important about planning? As some of you know, about 9 weeks ago now, I started my journey towards the Paris Olympics, trying to qualify for my second Olympics and running 2:08:10 for the marathon. My current personal best is 2:09:48. So to run 2:08:10, I had to put this brilliant plan in place. And the plan was very simple. Start to attack every area of my fitness curve, all the way from easy up to as hard as I can. It's that simple. In a 10 to 12 day period, I would attack a different part of the curve. Very, very simple. What I wanted to do was make sure that in a 10 to 12 day period, I had done something to move my fitness forward at each different area: threshold, interval, VO2, hills, strength, gym, etc. I wanted to always make sure that every 4 to 5 weeks, I was a little bit better prepared for that big goal of making the Paris Olympics. I didn't want to make big leaps. I didn't want to take big chunks. There was no shortcuts. It was very simple progress. That was all. Always remembering the big goal. Now, what happened was around about week 7, week 8, I started to get a bit fitter. Now, what happens when you start to get a little bit fitter is you get excited. You get these little ideas. These things pop into your head that say, maybe I won't do the 5 times 2K today. Maybe I'll do 6 or 7. Maybe I'll join that session because I'm starting to get a bit fitter now. I could go keep up with those guys. That's what starts to happen. You start to justify for all different reasons why you should do a little bit more, why you should do it a little bit faster. You forget that it was working. The progress was happening. And this is the mistake that most people make. You get excited, you get these little ideas, and you let it destroy sticking to the plan. Plans get boring. Basic plans that work really well, they get boring. But you know what's not boring? Is running a bloody brilliant race on race day because you stuck to the A plan. You were logical in your decision making. You knew that plan would work. You made a bloody brilliant plan and it was gonna work. If you want to set a big goal, if you want to achieve that big goal, it is absolutely paramount that you put a good plan in place. Let's talk about how to put a good plan in place and how you would set that up with your life, your training, everything that goes on for that big goal race. Okay, so the first step in building this plan is to set clear and manageable goals. These goals need to be clear, as in, this is what I want to achieve. They also need to be realistic. Can you achieve those goals? If your goal is to break the 2-hour marathon, but you've never ran sub 3 hours, that is not a realistic goal. Set very clear goals, know what you want to achieve, know why you want to achieve it, and then set very realistic goals in terms of, yes, this is a clear goal, this is why I want to achieve it, but it is realistic. If it's not realistic, you will not stick to the plan. If you don't have a why, you will not stick to the plan. Be very clear, have a very realistic goal, and that will really help you stick to your plan. Now, my next tip would be, you need to make sure that this is a measurable goal. How about setting things like little steps along the way? I want to run a certain amount of distance next week. I want to go to the gym a certain amount of times. If I want to achieve this big goal that I really, really want, and I'm going to stick to this plan, there needs to be realistic stepping stones along the way. You've got this big goal, you've set up this plan, but you need to have a way to measure, are you actually on course? Have you stuck to the little things that's going to help you achieve that plan? So maybe you've set up your training plan, maybe you've set up time that you're going to go to the gym, maybe you've set up an eating strategy, your nutrition, etc. But make sure at the end of each week, you're holding yourself accountable. You're looking at, did I do the little things that I said I was going to do, sticking to my plan to help me achieve that big goal? And if you're not, why not? At this moment in time, you're the one that's in control of sticking to that plan and achieving that big goal. But as the weeks go on, if you don't stick to the plan and you start to miss things and you miss gym and you miss a few runs and you're not working on your nutrition, then it becomes your fault that perhaps on race day you can't achieve that big goal. So make sure, point number 2, you have a way of measuring and holding yourself accountable to the little things within your plan to help you achieve that big goal. Okay, number 3, staying motivated. If you don't have motivation towards your plan in the first place, and you don't have this big goal, and you don't have a why, you're not going to be motivated for this plan. So make sure that your why and the goal is a good enough goal and a good enough reason why you want to achieve that goal, or you won't have motivation. But what if the motivation starts to slip? What can you do? In your original plan, allow space for movement. Your plan doesn't need to be bulletproof, but what about allowing a weekend or, 2 weekends that if you want to do a race, you could do a race? What about allowing space once a week for changing the training? What about having multiple options? If I want to go to the club session, I'll go to the club session. Allow space to let your brain, if it wants to do something different, it can be flexible. It can move things around. What about having some kind of a reward system in place that if you go do your gym, if you perhaps go to yoga, if you do something for your psychology, your nutrition, or I don't know, you work on your hydration really well, maybe there's a reward system. That reward system would really reinforce that motivation. What if that reward system just says, if I do all these little things, I'm allowed that cheat night on Saturday. On Saturday, I can do whatever session I want to do. If I want to race, I can race, but also that night, I can eat whatever I want. You want a big dessert? Eat your big dessert. It's really important to have some kind of reward structure in place to help that motivation, help keep you focused. Another way to help that motivation is to remind yourself of the end goal. Set it as your screensaver, write it down in a journal every morning. Remind yourself what you're doing this for. I remind myself every day that I'm sticking to this plan now, and it might be boring and it might be simple, but it bloody won't be boring or simple when I'm stood on the start line of the Paris Olympics. That'll be bloody fun. And so stick to the plan now for the greater good. Number 4 is dealing with setbacks. It's inevitable that setbacks will happen. It could be health, it could be family, it could be work. Things will pop up. Could be a little injury. These things happen. The race could be cancelled. Who knows? You must allow space for things like that happening. If you get a little injury or a little illness, deal with it. okay? And what I mean by deal with it is wake up and say to yourself, what is the best thing I can do today to get myself back to full health? That's the number one thing. If it's resting from an illness, you must rest from that illness. If it's an injury, seek out treatment. Can you get some treatment? Where you're pushing too hard? Figure out why you got injured. You must do that. Are you doing strength and conditioning? Are you doing some recovery stuff at home? You need to look at these things and you need to start paying attention to them to give yourself the best chance of achieving that goal. It's so important. How can you stick to a plan, a training plan that is brilliant? It's going to get you that big goal. It's going to get you the personal best, but you're not doing anything for your recovery. Your nutrition isn't in a good place. Your hydration isn't in a good place. You haven't stepped foot in a gym. I don't know the last time you stretched. You must start working on these things. But if something pops up, make sure that you handle it logically, not emotionally. It's better to miss 1 or 2 days, even a week, resting an injury, helping it get better, than missing the entire build-up, or worse, doing little bits of training for an entire build-up, having to skip your intervals, having to skip your hills, not being able to do your tempo properly because the calf still hurts a little bit, and suddenly you don't achieve that big goal and you're miserable. Believe me, that fear of I don't want to miss a few days, that's a lot easier than being miserable for an entire build-up, worrying if that calf or knee or hip will hurt in that next training session. Understand that you're human. These things happen. Inevitably things will pop up where you'll have to make a decision that says, I need to skip today. If you want some tips on stuff like that, please go to joggingroom.com, my website. There's a running masterclass, nutrition, strength conditioning, recovery, running specific, and psychology. 5 workshops, 60 lectures, 12 hours of tips. It covers everything you could possibly imagine, plus lots of stuff on mental health and how to handle running that little bit better, how to handle race day nerves, etc., and how to stick to a plan. But today was all about planning. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you got some insight into it. The session I was doing was 4 times 3K. I needed to get back to basics. I did such a good job in the first 2 months of sticking to my plan. I was so good with my plan, likely because I wasn't as fit. And because I wasn't as fit, I wasn't tempted to go and join other people when they were doing their sessions. I'd hear other sessions and I'd know that these guys are a little bit ahead of me. But as my fitness started to progress, so did my excitement, so did that motivation to train, and suddenly I wanted a little piece of everybody's pie. Once you start doing that, everything becomes chaos. People start to get distracted, they veer off, they miss days. Once you miss 1 or 2 days, it's a slippery slope downhill. Once you change the training 1 or 2 days, it's a slippery slope downhill. Bring that motivation back, bring that discipline back. Be patient with your body, with your fitness, trust in the plan that you built, and stick to it. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Comment, like, subscribe, do all those lovely things. If you want to check out joggingroom.com, I cannot recommend it enough. I don't think you'll be disappointed. I know you will absolutely love it. But take care, and thanks so much for watching.